Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this unusual mile a minute. It's not the traditional granny stitch. It is a little bit more difficult, I'd say, but only that the beginning and end part of each strip is a little on the confusing side. The stitches themselves are not difficult, so I would urge you to have a go at it. This is the border that I've done this time, and well, it works up really quickly. So I'm just going to move this out the way. So I'm going to pause the video. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when there are new videos. I'm just going to pause it, clear this out the way, and I'll be back with you. Okay, so for the blanket that I just showed you, this pink one here, this pink and white one, I used Feels Like Butta, which is a 4-weight and incredibly soft. I used this colour, which is obviously white, and then I used a pink colour, which I'm not sure if this is the yarn band for. No, this is a white yarn band. I have none left, unfortunately, and I don't know what yarn band where that went. So it's just, I used a pink and a white, just two colours. You can make it multicoloured, or you can use variegated. I did also make a swatch, I just moved that out the way, with a DK 3-weight to show you. And for the swatch, I will, when we get to the border, I will put the border on this particular blanket, this swatch, so that 'cause it's nice and made already, and so I haven't got to make a whole blanket to show you the border. But this was made with a DK weight yarn, just any DK, as long as they're kind of matching in the size. But if you wanted to, you could do this part in a variegated and this part solid. You could make them all different colours, or you could do them where this part is the variegated. I've seen all of those on the traditional mile a minute, and they all look really effective. So I'm going to put this one as well to one side for now. To make it with a 3-weight, all you need to do is drop the hook size to around 4 to 4.5, depending on the actual yarn you're using, and do a few more segments as you go along. Now I will explain that a little bit more as we get to that point, but for this tutorial you're going to need some stitch markers. They're quite essential, pair of scissors and darning needle, and a 5mm crochet hook. And for this tutorial I'm going to just use another 4-weight yarn, which is in the UK called Aran, and this is a paint box Simply Aran. I do have some white somewhere, but I couldn't find it, so I'm going to use this Stylecraft Special Aran. They are virtually the same in their thickness, so because sometimes even though you'll buy a 3-weight or a 4-weight, they will quite often not be the same. So I'm going to use those, and I'm just going to clear all these bits and pieces out the way so that we've got a clear deck, and I'll get started. Okay, so I've made a little pile of my stitch markers so that I don't have the big box on the table, and I'm going to start with this really beautiful colour. If you wanted to know what this one is, just finding it on the yarn band. As I said, it is Paint Box Simply Aran, and the number is 242. It is a really beautiful colour. Just pop that over there. Find the end. And just pull some yarn out while I'm off the camera smidgen. So, okay. Now this, as I said before, the start and the end can be a little bit confusing, and so I'm going to show you how I overcome that little bit of confusion for the start and end. So you just make a slip knot. You do that any way that you normally would, and we're going to chain 7. So that's yarn over and pull through, and we're going to do that 7 times. Okay, so we've got 7 chain on our hook. So we're going to go into the center chain. So we're going to go into the 4th one from each end. So it doesn't matter which end you count from. And we're going to do a UK treble or a US double crochet into that chain. Now this chain is going to have quite a bit of work into it. So it will become quite loose. The hole will become fairly pronounced. Now if you didn't like that, you could always put a little stitch in that at the end, but I don't mind it. So I'm going to chain 1. So those chains here and my 1 stitch, my UK treble or US double, that now counts as 2 stitches. So back in that same space, I'm going to do another 2. And then chain 1. Okay, so we've got 2 lots of 2. Now we're going to do 2 more. Oops, we need to take the yarn with us. Although I pulled the yarn out, it's not flowing freely, so we'll have to work that out. There we go. So there's our second one. So now we've got 3 lots of 2. I'm going to chain 1, and to mirror this one that we started with, I'm going to do 1 more in that space. And now I'm going to join it to these last 3 chains. I'm going to just go into the last one and slip stitch. So now we have 4 lots of 2 stitches including our chains, and that's what our bottom looks like. As you can see, this has got quite big, and like I said, if you didn't like it at the end when you're just getting rid of your ends, you could just go through there and pull it a little tighter if you didn't want that to look like that, but I don't really mind it. So I'm just going to let that tail just drop for now. I usually work mine in, but I don't want to get anyone confused. So I'm going to chain 2. We're now making the sides. So this is now the bottom of our work, and we're going to work from this way from now on. So in this space here, which obviously has already become quite large, we are going to do a UK treble or US double crochet, 1 chain and another one. So we've made a V stitch. This is where it gets a little confusing with what you're looking at. Now we're going to do another V stitch. We're not going to do anything in between. We're just going to do 1 UK treble, 1 chain and another. So we've got 2 V stitches in that center, and now we're going to join our work to this chain here at the end by doing 1 more UK treble or US double crochet. So now this is why it looks confusing, because it looks round although it's not, and we've got two V stitches and 2 ends. So what I do is I put a stitch marker in there and into the where we've just done our stitch, and now you know that that is your end stitch. And when I get to the other end, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So we now chain 2 and we turn, and we're going this way round. So we're going back into our 2 V's. These are the 2 V stitches we've just made. So we're going to go in there and make a V stitch. So that's 1 UK treble, 1 chain, 1 UK treble. Obviously that's a double in the US, and we're going to go straight in to the next one and do another. And now we're going to go into our top chain here, and we're going to do another stitch, another UK treble or US double. And that is how we're going to go on all the way along. Turn our work, 2 chain. Somebody asked me if it matters if you do the 2 chain before you turn, or if you turn your work and doing them, if that matters at all. It really doesn't, but I find if I'll show you what I mean. Some people, like I did just now, do their 2 chain. They actually don't lose it though, they actually do the chain. And then they turn their work and it twists a little bit. So I like to, if I've finished my work here and I turn, then I usually turn my hook so it's facing the right way. And then I just do 2 chain and I get no twist. But that's just me. I'm just a bit of a perfectionist, I suppose. So now I'm just going to V-stitch where I have a V-stitch. So that's 2. So this now becomes quite simple until you get to the end. So normally speaking, when we do mile a minute, it's sets of 3, but I'm doing it with V-stitches. Just like that. And now we keep going, just turning our work and doing our 2 V's and our 2 posts either end, 2 chain, 1 UK treble or 1 US double crochet, making our ends. So we're going to carry on like that until we have, not including these 2 ends, obviously we haven't done the other end yet, but we will have 62. So what I recommend is every time you've done 10, just to pop in a stitch marker. So we'll go ahead and we'll do some more, just to make sure everyone knows what they're doing. We're V-stitching in our V-stitches. It's really warm in here today. It's pouring with rain, so that's why the yarn is sticking to me just a little bit. I'm sorry if you can hear a little clicking, it's my bracelet. So now we're going to do our last stitch in the top chain. You'll probably hear the rain now, it's getting harder. So that's how it looks. And we're just going to keep going. And when we want to count 10, we just simply count from this one here. So we'll count up our 10 and then put a stitch marker in this one here. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to get to 10 and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so now I've done a fair few. So this one's in the first one and we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've done 11, so I'm going to put a stitch marker in there. So I'm only doing that because I'm going to do 62 of them, and rather than keep counting them all the time, you can just go 10, 20, 30, so you can actually keep tabs on however many you've done. So now all you need to do is keep going until you have 62, or that's if you want to make a blanket my size. I'll just get a tape measure and I will measure mine and I'll show you how many mine will measure up to, but you can make it longer or shorter according. So I'll just get a tape, because I didn't actually measure it until I thought of it just now, and see how much mine measures. Okay, so I used my measure tape and mine's 46 inches by 30 because I wanted it to be a fairly large blanket, but you can adjust that. So the longer you want it, you just make a few more. You can actually judge it just by looking at the length of your strip and then add in a good, say, couple of inches maybe on top of that either side will give you a rough estimate. So you don't have to do the 62 and make it identical to mine. You can make it smaller to go into a car for a car seat, or you can make it much larger and have it for a king size bed. It's up to you what you want to do. So, and likewise with the DK one, obviously that will come up an awful lot smaller in terms of the V's. So you might need, whereas you've got 62, you may need 82 when you're doing, and or maybe a few more or less depending on what you want to make. It's just a case of judging it with your eye. But I will show you how to do our mile a minute strips, and then how to do the edging around them and then how to join them. But really, it's your blanket. You can make it however you want. So I'm going to carry on doing my my mile a minute segments, and just until I've got the length. So I'm not going to make mine 62 long to show you on this tutorial, because I'm not going to make another blanket, but I just want to show you how to do it. But you can assume that it will be 62 long. I'll just show you with a swatch. It'd be different if I wanted to make another blanket, but I've already done one. So we just keep turning and carrying on, making our sides and our V's. It does grow very, very quickly. Hence the name, mile a minute. I'm having trouble keeping my yarn at bay today. I don't know if you've noticed. It's trying to go underneath me. I pulled my stitches out. Okay, so I'm going to pause it and I'll come back to you when I've got a decent enough size to show you the next step, but you will have 62. Okay, so I've made a swatch. Don't forget, yours will be 62, not including the two ends. Now this is how we're going to do our last end. So I put a stitch marker in the very last post, both sides, because this is the confusing end, and you will thank yourself for doing this. Okay, so I'll put my hook back in my yarn, rather, not my yarn back in my hook. And now we're going to make the end. Now this is slightly different to the last end because we do not have a centre stitch. We have this centre gap, but our centre stitches are these two from our two posts of our V's. So I'm going to do my first stitch in there. So I'm just going to, no chain, just go straight in with a UK treble or a US double. Whoops, nearly went all the way through. And then I'm going to chain one. So that, I know it's a bit of a gap there, but it does close up. But that line along here and this stitch will signify our two stitches. I'm sorry, I'm just about to get a parcel, so I just need to pause it for 1 second. I'm sorry about that. I just had my camera just malfunctioned on me, so I'm hoping that everything's there, and I'm hoping that did actually pause. If not, I'm going to have to try and edit it out, which will be a test of my skills. So because I got interrupted, I'll show you that again. I don't want anything to make it complicated. Okay, so back to where we were. These two are our center stitch instead of that one big stitch. So in that one, which is the top of, there's our first V, so it's the top of this, you can see there are two dead center. I'm going to go into that stitch and I'm going to do a UK treble or a US double crochet in that stitch, and then do one chain. So this along here and this one we've just made will be our two. So I'm going to, in that same stitch, I'm going to go in and do my two, and then one chain. But my next two I'm going to do in this one here, because it make it nice and center then. And then I'm going to do my one chain, and to make it the same as this side, I'm going to do my one stitch in there and join it to my top of my chains here with a slip stitch, and that is the end. So I'm just going to do a chain and cinch it down, cut my yarn and pull it through. So this end has the same stitches but just slightly different here. And if you're not, as I say, not keen on this big hole, then all you need to do is, with a darning needle, go through this whole circle and pull it tighter, and you can make it smaller. So now, the reason I've got these in here is because on this end, it's very difficult to figure out, because this is quite fat, very difficult to figure out if that's actually a space or not. So these are the spaces that you want to go in. Now I'm not going to start this side because I've got this tail and I only want to create one tail at a time. Mind you, I've got this tail this side. Doesn't really matter, does it? I'll use this, go in this one first. I will go over this one first, doesn't matter. So I'm going to take out my stitch marker. First of all, I'm going to get my white, or whichever colour you're edging with. I'm just going to move away this lilac colour. For our first one, we are going to just go all the way around because we're going to join as we go. And so this first one, I'm just going to do a complete all the way around. So I'm going to take out this stitch marker, set it aside, and I'm going to just join my yarn here. Now you can join your yarn however you want. Some people like to do like a little knot. I just do a chain and cinch it down. Sometimes I'll do just make my very first chain. Got to get that other tail out of the way, which is why I didn't really want to do one with two tails. Do my first stitch with my working yarn and my other. So I'm going to do 2 chain. That one doesn't count because it's actually there. So there's my second chain. It's actually my join. So there's my 2 chain. That's my join. And now I'm going to just do another stitch, a UK treble or a US double crochet alongside it. No chain. And I'm just going to drop that tail out the way. As I say, I would normally work them in, but it would get confusing. So now we're going to go in each of our side segments and we're going to just do 2 UK trebles or US double crochets. So basically these will become along the side a modern V-stitch. So this mile a minute consists of traditional V-stitches and modern V-stitches. So the traditional V-stitch has a chain between and the modern V-stitch doesn't, because we go in between it, and by going in between it we create a space and it makes it slightly less open, but nevertheless very nice. I like it. So that's what we're going to do all the way along until we get to the end. Just very simple. It is actually a very simple thing. It's just a little confusing at the ends. So I don't think there's anything that a beginner couldn't tackle, but it just helps to know crochet, I think, when it becomes a little bit intricate and confusing. But it's certainly not difficult stitches. So we're just going in every single one of our side posts all the way along, and that's what it's looking like. You can just see them quite clearly there. So I'm going to pause it and I'm going to go all the way along, and I will pick up with you when I get to the end here. No malfunction that time, thank goodness. So now I'm at the end. I'm going to take out my stitch marker, my last stitch, and I know that that is my very last one along this side. So I'm going to do my 2 in there, and now all I'm left with excuse me, are the 3 spaces from my sets of 4 at the end. So this one is going to become a corner. So what I'm going to do is go back to traditional V-stitch, so that's 1 UK treble or US double, 1 chain, then another, 1 chain, then another, 1 chain, and then another. So what we get are 3 spaces in our corner. Then we're going to jump to this one here, and we're going to do a traditional V-stitch, which is 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch. Now, as I said, this particular one we're going to go all the way around. So this one here is another corner because we are turning this around. So this is another corner. So we're going to do 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch. So we've got 2 gaps. Now be careful, sometimes it is very simple to just do 2, thinking you've done your 3, but what you actually want is 3 spaces, not 3 posts. So there we are, we've completely turned the corner. We're back to this one. I'm going to take out our stitch marker. We know that this is our first kind of real stitch. And if you're a little confused when you get there, all you have to do is look, and it is dead opposite the other one. So it should match up nicely. So that's what we're going to do then. We're going to go all the way along until we get to this end. Just going in every one of our posts all the way along, doing 2 stitches again, back to the modern V-stitch. So I'll pause it and I'll pick up with you when I get to the other end. But that's how our top looks now. You can see it's just nice corners. Okay, so I'm going to pause it and I'll catch up with you when I get just before this next stitch marker. Okay, so I'm all the way to the end. I'm going to take out this stitch marker where we need to go into and put my last 2 in there, and we're just left with the end. Okay, so if we look at it, then we'll see there's our center hole and there's our 2 sides. So this next one is the corner, and we're going to do exactly the same as before. So that's 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch, 1 chain, and then our last one. So we should have 3 spaces, and then 1 in the end, which will flatten out our end, and then our corner in the next one, exactly the same as before. So that's my second space, and there's the third. So now all we have to do is remove that out the back. If you wanted to sew those in as you go, then by all means do, but I recently had a bit of a problem where I had to undo something and I'd sewn my ends in and couldn't really find them. So now all I'm going to do is slip stitch into the top of the beginning chains and end off. I'm going to cut my yarn, and to end off, all I do is a chain, cinch it right down and pull it through. So this is what it looks like. You've got your nice corners each end, and then we bring in a new one. So you do want to try and make sure that you start with the same ends. It's a bit difficult. It doesn't matter if you're going to sew them though. That's, you know, if you're going to do that, that's fine. So I did remember how to do that. Now I've not forgotten it again. So I think it's starting with this end. Doesn't really matter. We're going to do that anyway. So we're going to join our yarn exactly the same as we did before. We're going to start it by taking out this first stitch marker and going in that space. So and this is our corner and this is our end. So we're going to go in here and just join our yarn. I'll do it the same way. Drop my tail There we go, and we're going to do one more in there, like that, and go all the way along again, doing 2 in each of our posts. All the way along until we get to the end. So I'm going to pause it and I'll catch up with you when I get to this stitch marker, because we do something different this time round. So I'll just pause it and I'll meet you when we get there. Okay, so we're at the end. Just pull out some yarn. Okay, so our stitch marker means our last 2 stitches right on the floor. Okay, now we're going to do our first, there's our middle, so there's our first corner, and we're going to do that as normal. So that's our 1 stitch. It just annoyingly falls off. 1 chain, 1 stitch, 1 chain. It fell off altogether. It's because it's really hot, you know. Now the rain has stopped and it's brilliant sunshine out there. You wouldn't have ever thought it, but we had a real storm. It's because I'm trying to do this on camera, I'm losing my stitches. So we've done our first corner the same as before. We're going to do our end the same as before. And then it gets a little different. So we're going to do the first part of our next corner. And then we're going to bring in our other piece. So we want to try and get these the same. So this side is the one we're working on. So lay at the side of it, and let's move that out of the way. We'll lay it at the side of it so you can see both. Now you've got your corner here match up with your corner there. So what we're going to do is, we've done our first one, we're going to go dead center into the middle of our V's. See, we're going to go in there, and then we're just going to yarn over and bring that through. And then we're going to complete our chain. So that's our chain, and now we're going to, I don't hold my hook and yarn like this, so it's really strange for me. We're now going to do our next stitch. I'm only doing it like this because I need to show you, and it's awkward. See what I mean? I wouldn't be able to do it. So now that's our middle section. So now we're going to go in, hold them side by side, and you can see we've gone into our middle one. So now we're going to go into this one, and we're going to bring it through. I'm going to hold it properly and complete our chain, and then we're going to do one more in that same space, and we've completed the corner. Now that does look tricky, which is the only reason I say it is a little bit tricky for a beginner. So we've completed our corner, but we've joined the middle section and this one. So now this looks a bit awkward because of it's the work and the first chain. So we rely on the fact that this is here to tell us where we go next. So I'm going to do the first part of my V-stitch in there. So I'll just hold it like this, and you can see splitting the yarn. And then I'm going to go in between our next V on this side. So I'm going to go straight between the 2 stitches, and I'm going to yarn over and just pull it through. It doesn't matter how you do it. And then complete my chain and do the second part of my V-stitch in there, just as normal. See, normally speaking, I don't lay them flat, but it's just trying to show you. So that's what we're doing. We're joining as we go now. So I'm going to go in my next segment, my next post along the edge. I'm going to start my V-stitch. So I'm going to do one stitch, and then I'm going to go in between my next one, which is here, I'm going to put my hook in, and I'm going to do my yarn over like that, bring it through, complete my chain, and now I'm going to complete my V-stitch. And we're going to do that all the way along. It's easier when you're holding it rather than laying it flat. But if you need to, by all means lay it flat. That's what it's looking like. We've joined at the centre here, and we're just going to go all the way down. So I'm going to start my next V in the next post. Complete it by going in to the next one. You can see where you've been. This is the next one. I'm going to insert my hook in there and yarn over and bring it through. You get fast at this, and then complete your chain, then complete your V-stitch. It does look hard, but it looks hard when you're holding it this way. When you're holding it normally, it's not. You just carry on as normal. But I've got this whole apparatus in the way of me holding it normally. So you go in between the V's, yarn over, pull it through, complete your chain, complete your V. So just do that all the way along, and I'll meet up with you at the end. I'm just going to make my stitch bigger, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So this is how it's working up, joining them nicely. It does pull open a little bit after a while. It looks tight at first, but I like to join as I go. The very first time I ever did a mile a minute, I sewed it. I did an invisible sew all the way down. Took me forever. It's a real long thing. It was a massive blanket. So I soon got fed up with doing that. So right, start the next V in the post. And then in between our next one on the other side, that's the one we've been into, just go in there, yarn over, bring it up, and then complete the chain, complete the V. Into the next one. Find the next stitch, pop it in, yarn over and pull it up, complete the chain and complete the V. So I'm going to go all the way along. If you need to see that again, then by all means just rewind it. I'll meet up with you when we get to the end. Okay, so I'm all the way to my end. So that's kind of come out now. And we're going to carry on, do my last post in there, and then I'll show you how we join again when we get to the corner. Now I've got lots of ends to negotiate here, which are a bit annoying. Don't want to carry them through and start using them. Right, so now we're at the end again. So we're going to start our corner. Not getting the end caught up in. So we've made our first post of our corner, and we're just going to insert, there's our 3. You see it? 1, 2, 3. We're going to insert into this one. And we're going to yarn over and pull that through. Complete our chain and do our second post of the corner. We're going to go into the middle one. We're going to yarn over and pull that through, complete our chain, do our second post of the corner. So we've now joined to the first one and to the middle one. We're going to chain 1 and complete our corner. That one doesn't get attached. And then we're just going to go in the middle one as usual with our V-stitch. And in the next one we just do a complete corner. Let's move that tail behind, hopefully keep out the way. So it's a stitch, a chain, stitch, a chain and a stitch and a chain and a last stitch. End is a little pesty, isn't it? So now all we do is slip stitch into our top chain. You don't have to get it into the exact part, and snip off our yarn, make a chain, cinch it down and pull it through. So now we've joined two segments together. So all we do is make our strips and do this exactly the same with each one. So the length of your strips is your personal preference, and the width can be determined by however many of these strips you make. So for my blanket, I wanted to make 9, but I was playing a little bit of yarn chicken and lost. So I have 8 across, but obviously you just make it as wide as you want to. You can add or take away depending on what you want to do. So that's how you make the blanket itself. So I'm going to give you a timestamp in the description box of this point here, and from this point on will be the border. So it is 42.24, and then you'll start your border. Right, so here's our border, and I'm going to show you how I made this border. It's nice and simple, but I'm going to show you on this swatch. And this swatch is made, as I say, with DK weight yarn, and it's just any kind of, I just used any DK. I got this from Aldi in one of their yarn events, and this white was just one that I picked up in the local store. So what I did, I made sure I joined at a corner. So just pull out some yarn. And obviously, you know, if you've made this with 4 weight yarn, you do exactly the same. So it makes no difference. So I'm just going to join in this corner here and go into my center one. Okay, and join my yarn. So you can join it however you wish to. Don't, you know, anyway. So I'm going to do a 1 chain, and I've cinched it down. That's what I class that as my 1 chain and cinch it down. So I'm going to do a UK half treble, which is a half double. Now don't worry that the first one has 1 extra stitch, but if you join your yarn a different way, it doesn't matter, you won't have it. So you just yarn over, go into that middle V, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull all through all of them. And I'm going to work over this tail for once, so I'm going to do 1 more, yarn over into the stitch, yarn over and pull up, that's 3, yarn over, pull through all 3. So now I'm going to do that all the way along. Okay, so I'm going to go straight into the middle of that V and do 1 stitch, and I'm going to go in the post. Don't worry about the tail. And I'm going to go into the next post and then in the center of the V, and then in the posts. Just going to do that all the way to the end. And when I get here, this is one of the joins. So I make sure that I go in the post, and then I can't get one right in the center, so I go into this V of the corner, into the next one, and then into the post. Now sometimes it does go like this, but it soon evens out. So just carry on all the way along, and I will meet up with you when I get to the corner. So it's just 1 in between and 1 in the posts, and I'll catch up with you at the corner. Okay, so we're at the corner, so I'm going to do 1 in between that first V, 1 in the post, and then in this middle one, because I need to turn the corner, I'm going to do 3 stitches. pull out some yarn. So I've done my 2 and I've done 3. Now you'll notice in the first one that I just did 2, and that's because I wanted to do half of the corner, and when I get back round I'll complete that and I will finish dead center of the corner to start my next round. So I'm going to just go, if you can see, if you went in there now, it might be a little bit bunched up. So I'm going to just go into that one, and then that will keep the distance nicely. But you can see, if that, when you get to those joins, if you feel that the distance there is too great, then by all means, you know, you can go into one of the stitches if you can. But likewise there, I felt like if I'd have gone into this post, then there would have been too many stitches and it would pucker on the next rounds. So it's just kind of playing it by ear really. Just make sure you pick up enough stitches around to give it a nice even border. So now we're going to go into the posts and then back into the V's, just as we did before. Now these ones along this side, these are the ones with no chain, so by going in between them you're parting them just a little bit. So I'm going to carry on then, and now you know how to do the corner. I will meet you once I get back to the start and show you how we finish that corner. Incidentally, I just wanted to let you know that because there's no centre chain, all I do is go into the V, into the next post, into the V, and then I need to pull out my yarn again, and then into the next post. So I've already gone into that bit. There we go. So that keeps it the tension right, because we've lost that centre chain. We don't want too many stitches, as I said before, so it's rather than both posts, we are just doing in the centre, into the next post, into the centre, into the next post. Just didn't think I made that clear. So going to carry on, and I'll catch up with you when we get to the start. So bearing in mind, when you go around this part, you've got the chain, and when you go along this other edge, you won't have. Okay, so I'm right the way back round. There's my first 2, so I'm going to complete that by doing my 3rd, and then slip stitch into my first one, and now I am right in the centre of that corner. So I'm going to chain 1, just cinch it down, so I don't like to confuse it with a stitch, and I'm going to do 2 again, so that when I come back round I'll complete that corner and be right in the centre. Now I'm just going to do 1 exactly the same, 1 UK half treble, which is a half double in the US, in every single stitch all the way around. So I'm going to, that will be my 2nd row, exactly the same, but when you get to the corner this time it will be different, because you'll just have your 3 stitches and you'll do your 3 in the center one. But it's simpler now, you just go in every single stitch that you've created all the way around. And so I'm going to pause it, and I'll catch up with you when I get to the first corner and show you what to do then. Okay, so I'm almost there at the corner, and you can see where you want to put your corner. So you're just going to do my 3 stitches in that corner stitch and just carry on all the way around, doing 1 in every stitch until the next corner. So you just repeat that, so you're making your corner where you've got your corner. It just follows on nicely. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way around, and I'll catch up with you when I get back to the start. Okay, so I'm almost back, and 1 more to do. 1 more to complete that corner. Slip stitch into the middle and I'm right in the center. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to change colour. The reason being, for one thing, I'm running low on this white, and I want to be able to complete the whole border. Plus I want to see what it would look like with the two colours that I've used. So I'm going to bring in this colour, which I do have a lot of. So I'm going to do these next 2 rows in this colour and then bring back the white. I just need to pull out some yarn. So I'm going to finish that stitch with the new colour. So I'm going to insert and bring in the new colour and continue in that new colour. So because I'm joining the colour, I'm just going to put a little knot in this. Not a massive one, I'm just going to do it with like a single knot. And then I'll work those ends in. So now I'm going to work in this colour. I'm going to do my corner just the same as I have here. So I'm going to start with just this section, and then when I come back I will finish it. So I'm going to do 3 chain, so that's 2 for my post, 1 for a chain, and then I'm going to do another one in the same stitch. So that is half of the corner. When I come back I'll finish that corner off. So now I'm going to skip 1 stitch, and in the next one I'm going to do 2 UK trebles or US double crochets, just 2 together in the same stitch. And I'm going to chain 1, skip 1, and then do 2 in the next one. Chain 1, skip 1, and do 2 in the next one. And I'm going to do that all the way along. Sorry, I didn't know if I went off camera there. If I did, I will show you again. So as you can see, we've got half a corner, and then we've got 1 chain, skip 1, then 2 in the next, skip 1, 1 chain, 2 in the next, 1 chain, skip 1, 2 in the next. So I need to do my chain, skip 1, and 2 in the next. I'm going to do that all the way along until we get to the next corner. But I just wanted to show you that what I said about this edge, it was going kind of like this, and it's still a little bit, but as you can see it's much straighter. We can barely see it now. In fact, I can't exactly see it now, but on the next rounds that will disappear completely. So I just wanted to show you that. Now I'm going to carry on doing that. 1 chain, skip 1, and 2 in the next stitch all the way to the corner, and then I'll come back to you. I'll pause the video now and I'll come back to you and show you what we do at the corner. Okay, so we're at the next corner and it matches up nicely. Now if it didn't, this is a very forgiving thing where you could make up that stitch, but it does match up quite nicely. So now I'm just going to do the corner exactly the same way as I did here. So that's just obviously 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch, take it all with you, 1 chain, 1 stitch. So we've got our 2 spaces. Be careful to make the 3rd. Just get around that corner, 1 chain, skip 1, 2 in the next. So I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I will pause the video and catch up with you when I get back to the start. Now as you can see, it does kind of mean there's a bit too many stitches, but it's fine. On the next round we're just going to go in these spaces. And also, if you wanted to, this just gives you a rough idea if you wanted to maybe do another round of this UK half treble or US half double, it looks quite nice with just a plain border. If you didn't want anything kind of fancy, you could just do that. But I'm gonna pause it then, go all the way round, and I'll catch up with you when we get back to here and need to finish the corner. Okay, so we're now all the way around and we're going to complete this corner. So ignoring that tail, I'm just going to go straight in there, and I'm going to do one UK treble or US double, one chain and another, and then to join it, instead of doing a chain, I'm going to do a UK double crochet, which is a single crochet in the US. So I'm just going to go into that stitch. It doesn't matter if you go into which loops. Yarn over and pull up a loop, so you have two. Yarn over and pull through both. So we have 1, 2, 3 spaces. So now we're going to work in this center space. So I always like to go into that, yarn over and pull up a loop and pull it through, so slip stitch into it, which gets me into that center. So this is where you decide whether you want to do one row of these pairs or whether you want to do 2 rows. So on my blanket I chose 2 rows, but this will look a little different in a different color. But you've got your rows at the bottom here, do 1 row and then your rows of UK half treble, US half doubles above them. So I'm going to carry on and do what I did before. So I'm going to chain 3, because that's 2 for a stitch, 1 for a space, and I'm going to go back into that center and do another UK treble or US double crochet. So that's half a corner. And now I'm going to treat this exactly as these and go in between with just 2 stitches, no chains this time, in between there. So you can this time though do 1 chain and go, sorry, got in the wrong bit, haven't I? I don't want to chain at all. It's only the corner that it makes a difference. We're going to go in between them. We're not going to go into the V's. We're going to go in between the V's where we've done our chain space. And we're going to do 2 there. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to go in between them again. So it's the kind of opposite of a V-stitch. We're going between them and just doing our pairs. A chain and go in between with another pair. So kind of the opposite of what we were doing earlier when we were making V's. Now we're just doing kind of blocks with a chain in between. Split the yarn there. And we're going to do that all the way around. And then when we get to the corner, we're going to do the same. So we're going to do 2 in there, our corner, and 2 in there. If you find that bunches up too much, then just by all means do 1 stitch in these 2 at the side. It depends on your tension and all sorts of things, but this is how it kind of looks. It looks okay to me here, but if you felt like that was too many stitches, then I suppose you see, the deciding factor will be when you've got your corner in. It might make it too bulky, but you can do either at the corner. So I'm going to carry on. I'm going to go all the way around. I'm going to do my corner in the corner, and either 1 stitch here or 2 stitches in there, depending, because we don't want it to look overcrowded. And then we'll carry on and going in between each one, doing our corners the same as this, but with 1 or 2 stitches in these segments here. I'm going to do 1 more round with this colour, and I'll come back to you and we'll get on with the white. Okay, so I'm nearly back and playing yarn chicken. That's all I have left. So that's pretty incredible. I did have another ball, but I didn't really want to start on it. So I found the corners, for me, for my tension, were better just doing one stitch either side of my corner. This one has two, but I'll work around it. It doesn't really matter too much. So now I'm going to finish this corner by going into the same space, doing my stitch, my chain, my stitch. And this time I'm going to change colour again. So I'm going to insert and bring back the white. So that's all I had left. That's amazing. So bringing in the white. I was going to pull out some yarn before I start. Okay, so I'm going to just bring that in and just go through. It doesn't really matter because we're now going to start doing our UK trebles again. So I'm going to go into that stitch and pull up and then do my slip stitch, which is not going to be that easy because I didn't tie this that time. So just pull it tight. So I'm going to just work over these tails now, and I'm going to do my chain and cinch it down. Don't want it to get confused with the stitch. And I'm going to do 2 UK half trebles or US half doubles in that space of the corner. So we're back to that again. And now we're going to just do 2 more rows. And this time, until we get to where we have space between, we're just going to go into our stitch. So I'm going to ignore this post here because I did do 2 where I should have done 1. I think if it depends on your tension. If you're not, I'm quite tight, I guess, with my tension. I don't know. So now I'm going to go in every stitch until I get to my spaces, which is round about here. Just go in. Okay, so now I'm only going to do 2 in between each of my pairs. That will get our stitch count right. So just going to tuck them behind there, and it will pull them apart like it did down here. There's 1 and 2, 1, 2, and we're going to do that all the way along. Now if you find it does start to pull, then just do 1 in the middle, but on mine it didn't, and I was fine. But I guess it just depends on how tight it is that you've been working. On the next round it does actually even out, but it pulls those apart nicely. So I'm just going to do 2 in between each one. When I get to the corner, I'm just going to do 3 in the middle, just like we did on our first 2 rounds of the border. It's nice and simple. We're back to the nice simple rounds. So I'm going to pause it then, and I'll catch up with you when I get to my first corner. Okay, so we're right up to the corner, so I'm going to go in the post. I'm going to do my 3 in the corner, and then I'm going to go straight into this one, because if I go into the post at that point, then it would pucker, there'd be too much. So I'm just going to go into that one and then into the next stitch. I just usually judge it, and if the distance looks too far, I'd go into that post, but then the corner sits nicely. So I'm just going to go all the way around, and once I get back to the start, I'll catch up with you there. I'll pause it now. So really just use your judgment along there. If you find that it looks like you need that stitch, put it in. If it looks too close and it looks like there'd be too many stitches, then don't. Because really we've made gaps because we've just been going in between each stitch anyway, each set of stitches. So I'm going to meet you when I get back to the start. Okay, so I've made it all the way back. I'm going to go into that stitch there because there's a gap that's quite large. Go into the last, make my last stitch of that corner, slip stitch into the middle, again into the next stitch. So that brings you back into the center. So this next row, I'm going to do exactly the same as I did on the first 2 rows there. So I'm going to make sure I do 3 in the center of the corners, 1 stitch in every stitch around, but 3 in each corner. So it's exactly the same repeat as these rows down here. So I'm going to pause the video because you've seen that already. You don't really need to see that. And I will catch up with you when I've finished, get back to this point of this next round. Okay, so I'm all the way back. Now the more observant of you might have seen that I did the wrong stitch back there. I did notice, and I took it out, frogged it back. So I do my last one in the corner, slip stitch into the middle, and then I just need to end off. Left my scissors out of reach. So I'm just going to cut that nice big tail for working the end in. Now if you look, that's, I think, a nice enough border. But you could, if you wanted to, do kind of an ornate sort of scalloped edge or a little filigree edge to that. But if you think that all of that there is a border, it's quite a big border anyway, that's what it looks like with 2 colours in the border. And refresh your memory, is that back to front? It is. This is what it looks like with just 1 colour in the border. So this one, as I said before, there are 8 strips which are edged. You can make 9. And this one is made with DK. That's obviously 4 weight, the other one. Now this is what it looks like with the DK. Now I used 22 length for these strips, and it's made a nice little size for perhaps a blanket for my granddaughter's dolls. So that's what I'll do. I'll sew these ends in and then I will give that to her. I quite like it with the 2 colours, but I like it equally with just the 1 colour. So I'm not going to bother doing a fancy edge. That's just all finished for me. So thank you for watching. Stay safe, take care, and I'll see you on the next one.